Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth module, Sensory Play with Hands and its Association with Food. So today we'll be discussing early childhood eating behaviors, eating as a multisensory experience, sensory play and food acceptance, as well as activity suggestions. All right, so starting off, early childhood and eating behaviors. When we talk about food and growing children, it's important to think about the time period of 12 to 36 months of age in which a child is developing their own food preferences and beginning to become more independent and explore and learn about the world on their own. An example would be when you think about how you weaned and transitioned your child from bottle or breastfeeding to the introduction of purees and then solid foods, how your child began to explore foods placed in front of them and attempted to feed themselves with their hands. As they use their hands to explore and feel their food, they learn so much about the texture and learning to decide if they felt safe to eat it. While early childhood is a period of immense learning and exploring, it also features the emergence of challenging behaviors such as picky eating and food neophobia. Picky eating or fussy eating can be defined as being selective about what they like to eat. Children may often start to reject certain foods depending on their sensory characteristics, such as how they smell or how it feels. Now, to some extent, picky eating can be part of a normal developmental phase in which your child is learning to decide their own preferences and voice or communicate how they feel. Some studies have shown that pickiness in eating typically reaches its peak between the ages of 3.5 to 5.5 years before gradually reducing. However, there is a wide and large spectrum in the level of pickiness in children. In about 20% of children between the ages of 8 and 12 years old, they can still be considered picky eaters, and this can lead to an insufficient variety within their diets and decreased nutrition. Another eating behavior that often emerges in early childhood is food neophobia. Food neophobia is described as being unwilling to try and taste new and unfamiliar foods. Families may generally see this type of behavior peak at 2 years old and may continue on until about 4 to 6 years old. As with picky eating, food neophobia is viewed as quite common and a typical part of a child's development. It's estimated that about 40 to 44% of young children display some level of neophobic tendencies, and this can cause some difficulties when trying to introduce new foods for a varied diet or when eating out within the community. Now, in order to consume all the necessary and essential nutrients, it is important to be eating a diet with a wide variety of foods because it promotes a healthy and long life. Research found that food neophobia and picky eating are related to decreases in quality of diets for both children and adults. In particular, naturally occurring foods like vegetables and fruits are well known to carry many healthy benefits for our body. However, they are among the most rejected and disliked of the food group. As we know, fruits and vegetables are a wonderful source of minerals and vitamins, and multiple studies show that eating them is associated with a lower risk of having chronic and long-term health conditions. Although it is easy to say these are healthy and packed with nutrients, many children are not eating the recommended daily amount of fruits and vegetables as reported by the Centers for Disease Control. Eating behaviors like fussy or picky eating and reluctance hinders a child's preference and consumption of a wide variety of foods that are necessary to meet dietary health guidelines and may also lead to not eating enough. This is why it is so important to support and encourage your young children to explore and eat fruits and veggies in a positive way to increase their preferences in diet so that they may continue on to enjoy eating into adolescence and even adulthood. So, how can we support and encourage children to taste and enjoy eating fruits and vegetables? We can first understand and discuss the role of sensory learning and food acceptance. Eating is a hugely multi-sensory experience, and it involves the integration of senses as we think not only about the taste and smell of food, but how we see it, is it visually appealing, and we may even touch it with our hands before we decide to take a bite and feel and taste the food in our mouth. Let's think about what motivates you to eat or try new foods. If we are walking in the city, We may pass by a bakery with a sweet smelling aroma that draws us in. Or we see a colorful salsa packed with tomatoes, cucumbers, and even mango bits that we'd love to dip a chip into. Are there any restaurants you've passed by multiple times while driving and thought to yourself, maybe I'll give it a try? A personal experience I've had with a fruit that I was not familiar with was durian. It's a popular fruit in many Asian countries. And my first time trying it, my mom was peeling it out on a warm day, and the smell is quite pungent, filling the room. And as I took my first taste, the warm temperature and mushy texture did not appeal to me at all. However, the second time I saw it, my mom had taken it from the freezer. The texture was firmer, and the cool temperature made the consistency similar to an ice cream. And over time, the smell of durian became more familiar with with memories of my family rather than having a strong, intense smell. Our senses play a strong role in the development of preferences for the food that we incorporate into our diet. In particular, touch processing is associated with food acceptance. Our ability to process and perceive touch relates to how we evaluate the feeling of different substances, including food and non food. The texture of food is a huge determining factor for acceptability and liking, especially when we think about how we perceive the texture of foods in our mouth. Is it crunchy, soft, or chewy? Now we're moving on to discuss touch sensitivity, which can be described as a child's reluctance to have their skin come into contact with different substances. This can refer to a difference in liking or having an emotional reaction towards certain textures, or the touch of objects such as sand, a toothbrush, or clothing items. Research studies found that children who displayed defensiveness to certain touch sensations and did not enjoy messy play with their hands seemed to also show a higher food neophobia in which they rejected more foods and ate fewer fruits and vegetables. For example, a child who is more sensitive to touch sensations, such as the feeling of grass or labels on their clothing, also appear to be more sensitive to touch in their mouth, and therefore to textures of food. Now, the most obvious reason a child may reject food is because they do not like how it tastes. However, they can also dislike the temperature, color, or texture of the food. In particular, when examining the touch qualities of food, many people in general display caution with slimy or lumpy food, as it can be difficult to manipulate in their mouth. Now, food texture is important for young children because their teeth may not be fully developed yet, and they may experience difficulty chewing and moving the food in their mouth. Research has found that children ages 3 to 10 years old who show touch sensitivity and defensiveness also refuse more food items. So, how can we remedy this and increase willingness to try new foods? Through exploratory sensory play and developing a positive engagement with varied textures and food. So, with food, young children demonstrate a wide range of exploratory behaviors like feeling and manipulating it, smelling it, putting it to their mouth, tasting it, and maybe even spitting it out. These actions are all part of a child's sensory learning as they develop perceptions about the food and learn to trust the food in front of them. Many recent studies have found that repeated exposures and sensory play with foods to learn about their properties, such as how it looks, how it smells, and feeling the textures, increased food acceptance and the likelihood of children touching and tasting new and unfamiliar foods. Similarly, a study found that preschool children who created pictures using fruits and vegetables were more open to tasting the food used in the activities afterwards. Providing exposure, non taste, and sensory play opportunities for children to learn about the properties of food without the immediate pressure to taste the food promotes familiarization and supports a child's willingness to try new foods because they feel safer and creates a positive environment. Encouraging children to engage in food and non food sensory play with their hands supports their ability to process, adapt, and accept the different textures that their skin is coming into contact with. The relationship between enjoying touching different sensations with our hands and skin is related to different food textures in our mouth. This is described as mouthfeel, the way food and drinks feel in our mouth, and is then related to the acceptance of various foods. Now, as we mentioned, eating habits that children develop often continue into their later years, which is why a lot of attention is focused on the encouragement of nutritious food choices such as fruits and vegetables in childhood. However, increasing intake in children remains a challenge for parents and families. Children use their senses to determine aspects of fruits and veggies such as their appearance, texture, taste, or smell, and these all play a role in deciding whether or not a child will want to eat it. There is a concept of learned safety, in which children may taste small amounts of food and then process their reaction and taste some more before they decide they want to eat it. As mentioned previously, children use these exploratory behaviors such as licking, smelling, tasting, or spitting to get more information about a new food. Allowing your child to carry out these actions helps them to learn about food and supports their feelings of autonomy and choice. Research shows that by creating positive learning experiences, repeated exposures, and eating the same foods at mealtimes with the family, as well as modeling for your child, increases their willingness to try. So, for young children with repeated exposures and opportunities to the same food, they begin to increase their familiarity to the food and gradually begin to feel safe and comfortable to taste it, like it, and eventually accept and continue to eat the food. In this next slide, we'll discuss some strategies to promote success in fruit and vegetable acceptance. So, getting young children to try new foods or increase the variation in their diet can be a challenge. Even with well intentions, sometimes we may pressure our child in an attempt to promote healthy eating. But what we don't realize is that sometimes that makes a child not want to do it even more, and it decreases their enjoyment with food. A study with children ages 3 to 5 years old found that children who were pressured ate less food and made more negative comments about their food than those who were not. There is a lot of research surrounding how we can use positive and encouraging strategies with children so that it can improve their attitudes towards food and minimize discomfort around eating and meal times for them and families together. One such strategy includes using sensory play activities to explore food and non-food sensations. For children, games such as making pictures with food, as mentioned earlier, or building and stacking fruits and vegetables, or even playing bingo with real foods, allows them to explore the feeling and appearance without the pressure of having to taste it. By incorporating activities of sensory play with foods, it reduces fear and familiarizes children with these food types, which is helpful for children who express reluctance or are in a fussy eating phase. Other strategies include using imaginative and physical games, such as pretending to climb a mountain to camp, gathering food, and making a vegetable stew, which is successful in increasing the likelihood of tasting by allowing children to associate foods with positive and pleasurable experiences. Studies also found that many children enjoy story time and picture books with characters that send a message, such as eating carrots will make you fit and strong. Young children in the study felt excited as the rabbit character ate a lot of carrots in order to become strong and save their friend. The study found that afterwards, many children increased their consumption of carrots as they tried to imitate the character. All of these strategies support creation of a balance between encouragement to taste and try new foods by planting the seeds of positive food memories for young children and building their excitement and pleasure towards eating new and various foods. Now we'll talk about some activities you can start to use with your children. So first up is a silly play or vegetable and fruit play. So this activity really is aimed at creating a positive relationship with food. While preparing some meals, you can save some extra slices or scrap materials and keep it on the side for your child. There are so many fun ways you can incorporate vegetables and fruits or any non-preferred foods during mealtime. With vegetables, you can stack and build veggie towers or even make silly faces out of the food items. Other ways can incorporate using slices of fruits into yogurt or applesauce and using them to paint. Bring your child's favorite toys into mealtime or as just pretend play and take turns tasting or describing the food. Another activity includes a pasta sensory bin. Using a gathering a bin, you can also use dry, cooked, or a mixture of both pastas. And there are so many ways your child can play and explore using these. You can separate the textures, string onto pipe cleaners or dry spaghetti noodles, scoop and measure the pasta, or even incorporate pretend play as described earlier with their preferred toys. This helps to develop a positive relationship through play with different food textures and stimulates their senses while also promoting fine motor development. A third food play activity includes marshmallows. Marshmallows are soft and spongy, but can also get very sticky. So various activities you can incorporate with marshmallows includes creating towers or figures using straws, dry spaghetti noodles, or popsicle sticks. You can even stack and create marshmallow towers or snowmen, and even use scoops or tongs to fill and pick up bowls or muffin pans. Now, this is a sensory play experience that supports exploration of soft and sticky food textures. It also promotes fine motor skill development, such as strengthening, eye hand coordination, finger manipulation control, and bilateral coordination. Now, here are some activities you can help your child with exploring textures in non food play. First up is pretend Play Doh foods. So, creating food out of Play Doh for a fun sensory experience and developing a positive association with different foods. Play-Doh is a really great, fun, and creative tool where your child can explore and make different things. For some examples include rolling into little berries and squishing with their fingers, maybe rolling into vegetables like carrot sticks or broccoli and chopping it up with a popsicle stick. They can create pizza with various vegetables, or even feeding the pretend Play-Doh food to their toys. This is a way that you can create a positive experience with food and have storytelling. It also supports fine motor skills of hand and finger strengthening, eye hand coordination, and many others. A second activity for exploring textures with non food play includes finger painting. This is a play based experience for kids to explore wet and sticky textures similar to foods such as yogurt, sauces, or pudding. Using finger paint or even finding your own do it yourself edible finger paint, like creating um, using yogurt or applesauce, allow your child to get creative and explore with their hands. Demonstrate using a finger to tap and make dots, or make a handprint, and introduce toys like cars or animals to dip in the paint and create tracks. You can even have your child use their fingers to paint these toys. So this will promote sensory exploration of their touch and vision and increase acceptance of wet textures and things that stick to their fingers. It supports fine motor skill development as well as their creativity. And lastly, we have painters, tape, and stickers. Exploring sticky textures through play activities. So sometimes children may not enjoy the feelings of items sticking to their hands. So one way to encourage your child is to explore textures using stickers or tape. One activity could be having your child peel off stickers and place it on their hands, or even draw their name and have them place the stickers in a line. With painter's tape, you can tape small toys onto a cardboard box or their wall and have them peel the tape off to save the toy. This increases their exposure to sticky textures as well as many other fine motor skills. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot and we look forward to sharing more with you.